Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight TV edition. I'm Peter, that's Tim. We're working our way through Tales from the Crypt, and this is going to be Season 2, Episode 11. It's called Judy, You're Not Yourself Today. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. And this one's kind of funny in terms of the plot being completely different than I thought
Oh
it
yeah.
was going to be. Just based on the Crypt Keeper's introduction. I thought it was going to be about a couple who were, because he mentions them about being vain and beauty and all that, and I was thinking it was going to be about a couple who are trying to stay young. And there's a character who's trying to stay young, but it wasn't the
Mhm.
couple.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things going on in this episode that you could kind of be like, oh, it's going to be about this
Mm.
or about this.
Yeah,
and
because the majority of the opening scene is all about setting up the fact that the husband, because it's about a couple called Judy and Donald, and the opening scene sets up that the husband's this complete raving gun nut who really loves guns, gets off on guns, and when uh, a sort of gun safety guy comes to the door, door to door, and tries to tell him about gun safety, he points a shotgun at him and essentially makes fun of him, and
yeah.
then points the shotgun at his wife's head and shoots it to prove that it's not loaded. So he's a complete nut. Uh,
So so there's that like part of it, and then there's also this kind of weird part where it seems like I got the sense that they're kind of like a lower class, but trying to act like very like upper class kind of rich type of people, which it seems like that maybe there's going to be something like that was going to come into play.
yeah, because they had a very fancy like dining table. They had all this fancy china on the cabinet, and she kept like putting on a posh voice, and it felt like it was going to be that. That's what it felt like as well. So there was these things, and maybe it was going to be those two things clashing. It's not about any of that. I mean, that's all there. It's all a part of it, but it's what it's really about is this old woman comes by the house claiming to be a salesman of cosmetic items, and she ends up being a witch who swaps bodies with Judy. And the husband comes home from the shooting range because that's of course where he was, because that's the one thing we know about his characters, that he likes guns, and he has gun magazines lying around and all sorts. He comes home and the old woman's there, but it's Judy in her body, the witch, as she's credited as, and she's like, and she starts telling him all this stuff about their honeymoon and their marriage and stuff that only she could know. So he's confused, doesn't really believe her, but he ends up getting a phone call from a friend who says he's seen Judy at the train station. So he goes to the train station and we see Judy with different hairstyles. She's gone on the run. It's clearly the witch in Judy's body. And he actually, despite the fact that he didn't really believe her before, I guess seeing her act so different is kind of what convinces him.
Yeah.
But he gets this crazy idea to talk to her as if he still thinks she's his wife, but mention that she has cancer and that she's only got weeks to live, which makes her switch back bodies. Before we go any further, I want to talk about where he gets this idea. He sees someone on like a shoe shine chair reading a newspaper, and on the newspaper there's a headline that reads, there's a headline that reads, "Cancerous tumor turns out to be baby twins."
Yeah. As a smiling, happy mother holding two little babies.
See, I wouldn't be smiling. I would be absolutely like livid at the doctor who diagnosed me with cancer when
Oh
I
yeah.
was actually pregnant. What the
Yeah.
hell? Come on. But
Well, like she'll probably get a nice chunk of change. I'm sure there's some type of lawsuit or something that.
I'd hope so. I'd hope so. Where did she go to for her medical exam? McDonald's.
No idea.
But, yeah. So they change bodies back, and they come home where he's locked the witch in the closet, and he ends up shooting her. Although he's lucky it hits her because he shoots about everything in the room. He empties the entire clip in his handgun.
Yeah, for supposedly such a gun fanatic, he seems to have almost like no expertise in like handling guns at all. Like he's just wildly
Yeah, because
shooting his whole
it,
house up.
he was waving the shotgun around earlier. He was sort of dancing around with it on his way home. And then in this scene, yeah, he shoots like everything around, and he fires every single bullet, even though he clearly should stop. And even when he's finished firing every bullet, he keeps shooting, he keeps clicking. Like the witch falls out the closet onto the floor dead, and he keeps clicking the gun at her. And then after the panic settles down, he sort of starts going, "Yeah, I really did it. I really blew her away," and he starts making gun sound effects with his mouth and getting really excited
Yeah.
for some reason. This is the other thing, is that his wife Judy then gets turned on by him being such, I guess, a badass. If you, even though there was no badassery going on, but she seems to get turned on by it, which is another thing that was kind of surprising me early on in the episode, because she gets really angry at him for waving the gun around and for threatening the door to door guy with the gun. But then after he gives her a speech about it, it turns her on. So she flip flops a couple of times in that sense as well.
Yeah, it was strange. I did also feel like once he shoots the witch, and then she's kind of like, oh, this is turning me on and stuff, and then they kind of look like they're about to like get it on right next to her corpse. It feels like very awkward, like almost as awkward as he was shooting. It also seems like he has very little expertise in like making out with his wife and stuff. Because if you like look at him, like he's like he almost looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, and he seems very like stiff and like weird with her. I don't know.
Well, to be fair, Tim, you should be
strange.
stiff.
Well, not where it counts.
He's like a little child who's excited that he shot a gun, and now he's a little child who's excited that he's about to have sex. But it's weird.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's kind of why I enjoyed the episode. Honestly, was how kooky the characters were. They were kind of crazy. They didn't really make
Yeah.
a lot of sense as human beings. They were very over the top and cartoony.
Mhm.
And him being excited about the guns to this ridiculous extent, it almost kind of drives home. I wonder if there's actually meant to be a moral here about gun safety, because obviously at the end of the episode, after they've buried the witch in the basement, it cuts ahead 3 months, and we see the wife go up to the safe where they're keeping the amulet that she was wearing, which let her switch bodies, and the witch somehow switches bodies again. I assume the wife puts it on and it just automatically works. So we see
Yeah.
like her as a corpse, like walking around, and the husband gets. In fact, one point when the husband first wakes up, he wakes up from his nightmare. He just wakes up and points a gun out as if he's defending his home from an intruder or something. I'm like, where was that gun? Was he sleeping with the gun in his hand? It was just there.
It's got to be close by. I mean, the sad truth is even if this stuff with the witch never happened, he probably would have accidentally shot his wife, like at some point in the
Well,
future.
that's why I'm thinking there's like a gun safety thing, because the whole thing comes down to is like the witch corpse is like, no, I'm your wife. She switched bodies again, and the Judy's like, no, I'm your wife. It's me, and he tricks her by asking or making a statement about the car, and he says the wrong car, so and see if she gets it wrong, and she ends up trying to struggle with him, and he shoots her. And it's Judy's body, but it's the witch that's inside. But then the witch, as she's dying, switches bodies back so that the wife's in the body as it dies. And he like starts crying. And I honestly thought he was going to throw the gun away. But he keeps holding the gun as he cries, holding her, and that's the end of the episode. And I was like, and I think there's kind of a gun safety message in there, but it's kind of weird and
Yeah, it's like any type of message or anything is really overshadowed by the sheer like craziness of like the characters and just everything is kind of played this very like bonkers kind of mentality. Like the music is this kind of like fast kind of tango beat. It's
yeah,
very
there's a very constant sort of piano upbeat thing going on like throughout a lot of the episode. So it makes the whole thing feel almost slapstick. The speed it's moving and how it's him like dancing around with his gun, and so at the end of the episode, I'm like, I guess it's kind of a gun safety thing here, that he's clearly not someone who's properly trained. He's clearly obsessed with guns, but he doesn't actually respect them and treat them properly. And as a result, he's ended up shooting his wife. But it's kind of mixed messaging because it's not really his wife at the time, and it's
yeah. Like I think it could have had like an actual message if it was something more along the lines of like he was going to shoot his wife and then the witch switched back right before he did or something like that. But it's more like, oh, well, he only shot the witch that was pretending to be his wife, and it was because they were struggling. um and yeah, so it's weird.
yeah, it's a really weird mixed message. So, but I think that's what the point was. I think that's what they were trying to do. And there's nothing wrong with that message. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of it's hidden in all the wackiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other points about this episode that I wanted to make. Was it just me or did the opening credits for this one feel like it lasted for ages?
It did. I think the runtime on this was a little longer than like the last couple episodes. I feel like, most of the episodes we had has been a little more on like the maybe 22, 23 minute side, and I feel like this one's a little longer, like, I don't know, maybe
And it felt like
26 or 27.
because typically you get some of the credits, but they'll play out as it's showing you something that's kind of introducing you to the plot. The opening to this, like, it's just lots of close-ups of like the wife's ornaments, and there's
Yeah.
really no purpose to them. At least I don't think there is, and it goes on for a long time. And
Yeah.
by the time we even get to the first proper scene of the story, we're already like 3.5 minutes into the episode.
And again, like it might have made more sense if it was really trying to establish the fact of this, like, oh, look at all this, kind of rich stuff they're trying to have and decorate their house with. Like, if there's more of an emphasis on that on the story, I feel like it might be warranted a little bit. But again, it really doesn't have any bearing on it.
I guess her whole wanting to be like more proper and like upper class kind of ties into this whole. Maybe the theme of the episode is obsession. He's obsessed with guns, she's obsessed with this image thing. And maybe that's why she is obsessed enough to go and put the amulet back on, even though it could be
True, yeah.
dangerous. So I guess that's kind of the point of that stuff. It just doesn't feel fully developed enough to really hit home.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're going for like a couple of different things. Like they're setting up some of this stuff and like, oh, we'll do something with a gun message. But then like in the end, it's like, well, let's just have like a kooky story about like some crazy characters and body swapping and get a zombie in there at the end.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like there's some stuff they were genuinely trying to do, and it just I think they did two different things in the same episode that they probably should have done in separate stories.
Yeah,
Probably, or give it more runtime so they could actually flesh out the ideas they had. So, as an actual proper story, it kind of falls flat. As a piece of entertainment, because the characters are so wacky that it's kind of enjoyable, it does work to an extent.
oh yeah, I still had fun with it.
Yeah, I was never
still
bored.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
never bored. I was always entertained by what was going on. So I have to give it that. So it was. So I think in terms of was it a good episode? It was a decent one. It had fun stuff to,
Yeah.
but it fell short of a lot of things. So that would be
Yeah.
my critique on it. So that's Tales from the Crypt, episode 11, season 2. We will be back next week. I always say weekend, but really they don't tend to go up till Monday. But we'll be back next week with episode 12. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Remember, of course, we do movies on a weekly basis too. And this past week we saw The Bye Bye Man, which was the first theatre release of the year for us. We went for an hour. It was terrible. You can enjoy our ranting and raving on that, should you wish. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.